research and proprietary buyer research. Thanks to our guests from Soft-Tex, Chris Marsh, Chief Business Officer, and Taylor Jones, Vice President of Marketing. Hi, guys. What have you got for us today?
Hello, how are you?
Okay.
Doing okay, thanks.
Hope everyone out there is great. Good afternoon. I hope everyone, number one, is very healthy. I'm sure we're moderately stir crazy and mildly awake at this time of the day. Of course, people on the West Coast, they may be more awake than the people in the Midwest and East Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have been told, tell people what you're going to tell them. Hopefully we can keep this entertaining. We want to give you a little introduction of who Soft-Tex is. I think probably most people on this call know who we are, but go over that. I think the main points for today are kind of where are we today, right? The digital growth, consumer sentiment, and then the home textile impact and home impact for those that are not necessarily in home textiles. There are some positives that we're seeing, and I think we all know it, but we've done some research, and consumer research is something else that we'll be looking at. Kind of this home spending versus experience spending. We want to spend some time talking about that. We did a buyer survey, and when we say buyer, it's a retail survey and wholesale industry survey of a lot of folks. We got a lot of results back, and we'll share those results, and then kind of taking all that and culling that down and giving kind of what we think are the key takeaways.
Great. Sounds great. Let's get started.
Sure. So a real quick overview of who Soft-Tex is. Probably most people on this call know, but we're a 30-year utility bedding supplier, kind of best in retail partners or best in class retail partners in the business. We've always been counted on for what I would call highest quality product and fantastic marketing. But in the last 5 or 10 years, you know, we've really built our e-com, training development, retail support. And then in the last couple of years, I mean, this whole idea that technology and innovation is important. And that's who we are. And we've invested heavily into innovation and technology. And I think there's lots of exciting things that we've brought to market in the last, I would call it 12 to 24 months. And there's a whole pipeline of things that we're bringing in the near future. And for those that are out there that are our partners, we look forward to showing you those things as we develop them down the line.
Great. So COVID has had a big impact on all businesses and all consumers. What kind of perspective are you pulling from this experience? How has it impacted Soft-Tex?
Yeah, well, I think a couple things, and probably not unlike most that are on this this video call. Number one, we wanted to protect our employees and protect ourselves. That's a selfish interest, and then follow all of the guidelines recommended by the federal and state governments. And so we've done all those, and we've got manufacturing in several parts of the world, including New York City. And so we kind of adjusted day by day when this first started. And I think people are probably out there nodding, going, we did the same thing. I think one of the other things was, how can we help? And so we donated over 10,000 antimicrobial masks to various organizations. And then we also partnered with SSB, Simmons Serta, and they threw out a challenge to all of us to see if we can match what they did in donating, I think it was 10,000 mattresses. And so we worked with a relief bed. And for anyone that's out there that has not met Scott Smalling at Relief Bed International, please reach out, because outside of this important event in all of our lives, he's doing some great work with making sure that we're donating our products to people in need. And so we donated over 1,000 pillows or so to the Bowery Mission in New York City. They offer food and shelter and clothing. So those are some of the initial needs, things that we've done. I think the other thing was then, how about us, right? How do we take advantage of the time that we have working from home, and what are we doing? And I think some of those things are what we'll share with you today.
Okay, well, let's talk about them, because, you know, I mentioned the very real impact on companies, but a real impact on consumers, and impacting, I think, the way they're thinking and what they're prioritizing.
Absolutely, Jennifer. So we've done a lot of research, on consumer spending and trends during this time. So, the first thing of note is the e-commerce growth. So the Adobe Digital Economy Index showed for April that overall e-commerce spending jumped 49%. So pretty stark contrast. And then even before this started, we'd already seen, significant digital shifts. A payments.com study showed consumers are 31% more likely to make purchases online this year versus last. And then store behaviors, 72% of customers reported using a mobile device to assist while shopping in stores, which is up 47% from last year. Things like looking at reviews while in store, or, just to read more information about a product. And then 44% of store shoppers use that phone to compare, not just read reviews or assist, but actually compare prices and comp shop. And then the graph over to the right, you can see kind of the year over year page visit growth and also order growth. So, January, February, March, we're humming along, and then, big old hockey stick up to April, nearly double the page views and order count. So, huge e-commerce growth during this time. Obviously, many stores have been closed. Chris, anything to add to this?
No, I think you got it, Taylor.
Okay. So moving on, just, across the board outside of just e-commerce, to tee up, kind of what Chris alluded to earlier, the kind of interfacing between household spending and versus experience, so travel and transportation. So during COVID, obviously, travel and transportation has been nuked. You see this scale over here, less than 50% intent. It's all black.
Mm-hmm.
Household spending, actually it's flat to up during this time. And this was a McKinsey survey that ran mid-March through early April. So square in the COVID, peak times. And then, as an extension of that, the tourism revenue, the outlook is also pretty grim. So obviously, pretty bad right now, April, May, but considered, for the full year, expectation is a drop of about 50%. So on a $1.6 trillion industry, $800 billion is not being spent on travel. So where, are the consumers spending that money? Was kind of a big thought that we had as we kind of were reading some of these data points that, other organizations are putting out there, and prompted us to kind of develop our proprietary research, both from consumers and the bedding buyer survey.
Okay, so what did the consumers have to say?
Yeah, so just to before we launch into that, I did want to note, we are launching this industry insights, endeavor. It's got two components, consumer research and bedding buyer stuff. You can sign up to receive our forthcoming white papers on our website. It's under services and research, or you can, I'm sure somehow click this link. But from a consumer standpoint, the preview here, we'll investigate a lot more topics in the white paper, but specifically on that home spending versus experience, our hypothesis is that in light of COVID-19, U.S. consumers are more likely to direct more budget to their home versus experience. So to check that, we conducted a Google consumer survey using a 7-point Likert scale to rate your agreement from strongly disagree to strongly agree with the following statement. In light of COVID-19, I will spend more on products to improve my home compared to experiences like travel, performances, etc.
Mhm.
On that, the majority of folks agreed in terms of buckets. So if you bucket folks, as disagree, neutral, or agree, 44%, agreed that they would spend more on their home. Some other interesting insights: women were more positive in agreeing with that statement than men, 17% more likely to agree. Also, another interesting fact, so Google consumer surveys break out the data by region of the country. So regions more affected by COVID, so the Northeast, particularly, obviously, we hear all the stories, New York, New Jersey, showed much higher agreement that they would direct that spend to the home. There were not, meaningful insights or distinctions by age. Certainly, if people agree, that kind of validates our hypothesis. If they disagree with the statement, we can't really say that they're directing that spend towards travel necessarily. We just don't really know. There's a lot of factors in play right now, obviously, with unemployment. People just might be holding that onto that budget for other things.
Well, and that's a good point, because there are a lot of people laid off, and even among those who are still lucky enough to have a job, there are a lot of companies doing, rolling furloughs and temporary salary cuts. But you talked about people in there and thinking about spending on the home. Just recently, the CEO of Bed Bath and Beyond said something along the lines of they really feel this is home is going to continue to grow in importance coming out of this. At first everybody was focused on cleaning products, and then it was kitchen electrics. And I think the words he used were everybody's sitting around staring at four walls, and they're seeing things differently, and this could spark some renovation, even if you have budgetary considerations. So what did your research find specifically?
So to keep going, I think overall travel revenues continue to decline the balance of this year, and just every study that we see and all the conversations that we're having and things like you said, just the CEOs, executives are all saying, all things indicate towards higher intent to purchase products for the home as we move forward. Because as you said, people are stuck at home. They're looking at their home in different ways and say, I want a fresh and clean sleeping environment. I want to make improvements around, where I'm spending all my time.
That's really interesting. And you said there was really no difference by age, which I find kind of surprising, because you would think it would be the millennials who are now parents would have more intention than the boomers who are sitting around at home.
So I guess, on a minimal scale, there was more polarization for both the youngest consumer and the oldest. So
that was
were on the extreme, but it wasn't a huge number difference, but there was more polarization on like a 1 and a 7 with the young and the oldest demographic versus other groups. That would be the only real insight there.
Chris, were you going to say something?
No. It surprised us. Look, you do these things, and we've been around for a while, so we think we know, and most of the time we do know. But we saw actually a little bit of the 55 plus range that was, they're going to spend.
They were still actually the oldest group. They did have more in the disagree category, which was interesting. So could suggest that they were going to spend on some experience, hold on to that budget for other purposes.
Fascinating.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jennifer.
No, go ahead, Chris.
No, I think the net of that is that, look, we know that as an industry, and I'm assuming that everybody on this call is from the home industry. We've lost business over the last decade to restaurants. no one wants just burgers and chicken anymore. I mean, we want all kinds of things, worldly food. From the kids and families events. I mean, you know, we go to trampoline parks and you know, various escape rooms and all kinds of things. And every time we're on an airplane, it's packed, right?
Mhm.
That's where our money has gone. And it's, you know, I know that if you're an online retailer or you're a brick and mortar retailer, you say, you know, people are stealing my business. But the bigger thief is experience and entertainment. And that's where we've lost our revenues. And
Yeah.
whether you're in cookware or pillows or fashion bedding or mattresses or furniture or any of the home businesses, we're going to see a kind of a swing back to us. Won't last forever, guys, but let's not be flat-footed. I mean, I would say I can see a couple people's faces who has bought a can of paint or a picture frame or a plant for their garden or something in their house in the last 8 weeks. I can see Taylor.
Yeah,
I can see
that's
Jennifer.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Staged,
Yeah.
staged
Yeah.
background.
And guys, that's not going to change.
Yeah.
And so people will. I think what we're seeing is in people we talk to is if you're looking at a comparison when it's apples for apples. Obviously, if you've closed 900 stores, you can't compare 900 stores to 2 or 13 or 15. But when we see apples to apples, the home businesses are trending extremely well.
That's right.
And Chris, as you pointed out when we were talking the other day, Warren Buffett has cashed out of his airline holdings, right? At a loss. That's
right.
what he thinks is going to happen to the travel industry.
Sure, he's taking the money off the table.
Yeah, yeah. So Taylor, in addition to looking at some consumer sentiment, you also did some proprietary research on buyers.
Absolutely. And, you know, equally interesting insights on our buyer pulse survey. So really, you know, this survey was sent to gauge kind of sentiment right now and future expectations, really centered around, you know, COVID and some things, you know, in that nature. So we sent this over to 1,200 retail buyers last week. We've gotten a great array of responses from a diverse composition of retailers, you know, across all the different categories: brick and mortar, e-com, catalog, off-price, specialty, furniture, and more.
Mm-hmm.
So key takeaways from kind of the current state of affairs. So state of business during COVID-19, brick and mortar, as you know, showing a negative sales trend, as you might expect, forced closures, et cetera. 88% of those businesses showing down. Certainly, you know, in the mass channel, businesses have been able to stay open. We've seen, you know, things flying off the shelves in that world. So, and from an e-com standpoint, you know, everybody has been positive, you know, commensurate with what we showed earlier about the global e-com growth. Nearly 3/4 of e-com retailers expressed a positive trend. In terms of product class performance, so we asked about, you know, all of the bedding product classes, protectors, pads, pillows, sheets, mattresses. All of them showed a positive trend. The highest was protection products at 75, 68 for pillows, and 44% of buyers expressing a positive trend for mattress, which was the lowest of all surveyed. And we felt that was because it was the highest ticket item of the product classes that we brought up. From an attribute standpoint, fresh and clean, things like antimicrobial, allergen barriers, those are seeing a really great positive trend. From a brand preference standpoint, an interesting insight, both national and private brand, no change, very neutral trend. From a merchandising level, so we asked, you know, rate, you know, level of trend on all three of your good, better, and best merchandising level of product. So good level of product showed a positive trend. Better was neutral, and best was actually a declining trend, a downward.
Yeah, not surprising, right? People are being tight with their money. So what this suggests to me is value, value, value. And if the antimicrobial doesn't surprise me, and having to be presented and marketed correct in a way that is going to make it worth paying for, but also not priced at a place where they feel it's out of reach.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Jennifer, I mean, I think, there's 4 weeks ago is different than today, and 4 weeks from now will be different than, we are sitting here in front of our computers.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
We know that stores haven't been open for 8 weeks, brick and mortar stores. I see Easter signs in the windows, right? Now I live in Texas, so we've kind of been an early opener, if you will. And people are flooding back out, right, wrong, or indifferent. And so I think you'll expect that as the rest of the country kind of opens up. And so you've got to liquidate everything. You've got this 20% unemployment that probably moves down to 10, that moves back to someplace normal. And anytime you have that, you have the value equation. The good beats the better and best.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's not be flat-footed, because these things are going this way, and I'm not saying there's a cure or any kind of thing that we can do that solves why we're sitting here on a computer looking at each other. But the trends say that it will clear out of the low priced goods. There'll be a value equation, and oh, by the way, this home nesting is going to be broader than just price.
Agree.
Well, and next week we have several major retailers reporting their first quarter results, and even those that have been open, it's going to be interesting to see what their margins look like, because we do know from them that in the beginning people were focused on hand sanitizer, toilet paper, and paper towels.
Right.
Did your study give you any insight into how retailers are seeing the future?
Yes. So, that's a great transition. The future expectation question we asked, was just how do you expect the fourth quarter to perform? Because we felt that was, far enough out to get kind of that gauge. And 71% of all retailers suggested that they expect it to outperform 2019, which is really encouraging to hear. Of those folks, the e-com and off-price were even more bullish, but everybody showed a very positive outlook on the fourth quarter for this year.
Yay. That's good
Yay.
news. So here's the thing. Fourth quarter has not traditionally been considered the big home textiles quarter. I mean, do you have any feelings about how this industry should market into that season?
I certainly, for our business at Soft-Tex, we do see that as the biggest time of year from a digital standpoint and other things. There's a lot of promotions that run around Black Friday.
Well,
Perhaps our cross section of retail, is a very giftable item still. We have, things like behind me, gift box, a pillow that, you give as a gift.
mm-hmm.
So perhaps we've been fortunate in just our cross section of the environment, but certainly we see a volume pickup, from the third quarter onward.
Look, let's make some assumptions from the fact that people aren't going to travel as much, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So they won't see family as much. I'm sure that means, once again, you're sending gifts. E-commerce is growing. I go back to this home nesting and home items that will be bigger than normal. And so where maybe it's just a true giftable that's in a box that you want to see somebody open up, and these are just my points of view, you end up seeing more. It's a continuation, more selfish purchases, more purchases from your home. And if I'm giving something, it's something that someone can use in their home as opposed to going out on the road.
Yeah, I think it's sleep, it's comfort, and probably a lot more home entertaining, and because maybe you still won't be able to invite as many people over, you're going to want to play with it more, make it more decorative, you
Yeah,
know.
well, look, I go back to when you talk about an industry in travel and tourism and entertainment that's north of $1 trillion, a trillion, right? I don't even know how many zeros that is. But and then look at our industry,
Be
you
the
know,
business
mattress industry.
manager.
We've got billion-dollar industries, 10, 15, 20,
Yeah.
30, 50, depending on what category you're in, and it's cut in half. I mean, where does that money go? I mean, where does the money
Right.
go? It goes to Home Depot, it goes to Lowe's, it goes to Bed Bath, it goes to Macy's, it goes to Amazon, and it goes to our categories. So, guys, I mean, if I can be positive for one moment, let's not be flat-footed.
That's right. Well, and Jennifer, to your point about the importance of sleep, there was a study, while we didn't cite it here, but I think it was the Sleep Council in the UK that
Mhm.
that folks are really having a hard time sleeping during COVID as well. So obviously, the importance of a good night's sleep, it will continue to surge, as Chris has kind of alluded to, I think, as we go forward. But I think that, Chris, I'll let you kind of run through some of the, overall takeaways from all of this.
And Jennifer, I actually think we have the ability to take questions. So I'll pose those now. So if anyone has any questions, we can kind of answer them at the end. But we'll talk about takeaways. And takeaways are kind of immediate sales or shifting towards value. I think we know that you've got goods that are stuck in stores, and then you've got, unfortunately, people that have been furloughed and unemployed, and so price becomes even more important. Online sales will continue to show significant growth. It's been that trend for the last decade. It probably becomes accentuated over the next 6 to 12 months. Expectations are that, everybody on this call, it comes back to us, strong home and home textile categories. And then specifically in fourth quarter, we'll see some energy that hopefully makes up, because everybody's looking at, maybe not everybody, but if you look at March and April, we know those have been losses. Luckily, if there's any positive of the March and April loss, we used to call them Mapril. March and April are the weakest months of the year generally for our businesses. And so I think we have an opportunity to make up the deficits in Q4. The importance of fresh and clean, probably something that no one doesn't know, but they're becoming more important. A little bit more of kind of wonky data, a 4x increase on paid search, and a 3x spike in sales in items that in our world that are,
Right.
are fresh and clean. And then this whole idea of nesting. Nesting features and benefits are going to be more important. And so I think sometimes we can only think of where we are, right? Where we were a few weeks ago, a few months ago is completely different than where we are today. I'd like everybody on this call to take a step back and think of where we'll be in 6 months, not 30 days. And in 6 months, we're going to be talking more about, wow, our business is flying, and people want comfort and the traditional features of the products that we sell. So let's not be flat-footed. Comfort and cooling, top 2 attributes in our products, they'll be even more important.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when you look at it in that context, the time to get cracking is now, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Don't be flat-footed. Don't be flat-footed.
Okay. Great. So, I think it's fascinating. I'm not surprised by clean and fresh. And I heard from someone in the sheet side of the business the other day who said he also thought sanitize, anything was going to be a buzzword, anything around the idea of sanitization, something sanitized, sanitary. And I think that sticks. I think that's a permanent adjustment for the consumer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, we didn't do any research on that word, but I wouldn't disagree.
Yeah, I'd have to run it. So the spike in search, we pulled that from Google Trends data, looking at things like antimicrobial. I mean, you literally could go back. Google Trends is a great resource that measures relative search intensity of something against itself. I mean, you look at, 5 years of data, and it just goes, from like 25 to 100 overnight. So it's crazy.
So your white paper is going to be available, you said.
That's right. So, we've got, so the home versus experience piece is one small piece. We've got a 5,000 person quantitative research study that's about to launch, that'll talk about all sorts of things from a consumer standpoint. The features that are most important, we do this every so often. Comfort and cooling were the leading ones in our last survey, which was a few years ago. So there's been new technologies in the marketplace. Obviously, COVID. We'll see how that maybe has bumped up or down certain features. All sorts of how the buying process works. Who is involved? Do you buy your own pillow, or is it something that your significant other brings home and you just benefit, or is it a gift? We really are seeking to understand, how consumers are buying bedding, what products are purchased together, all sorts of really interesting questions and insights.
Okay, great.
And from the buyer standpoint, we'll publish this white paper, specifically around COVID, but we plan to launch a more robust survey, about other topics, not really, perception related to around COVID or current performance in the near future.
Okay, we have a guesstimate or estimate or rough idea of when the first one might be available?
So I think the consumer piece will be the first one that's available. I would say that one will launch in July. And actually, I guess the COVID buyer survey, that one is almost complete. We're still getting a few responses, but that should wrap up, in the next couple of weeks. So we'll be able to publish that in June.
Okay, great. Other thoughts from you, Chris?
Yeah, I think that look, a little advertisement for Soft-Tex. We are kind of here. I think we've done a nice job of leading research, and hopefully we can provide some unparalleled insights. And for our partners, we've got a ton of stuff that we want to share. And for anyone else that would like to reach out, we'd love to discuss with you. We're trying to use data to drive our innovation and sales process as opposed to our gut. Ironically, our gut is usually right, but sometimes it's not. And then take a holistic approach to merchandising. We're powerhouse.com and vendor direct team. We have global sourcing capabilities, and we have really a broad, complete trend right assortment, and we want to focus on the kind of the areas to win. I think right now it's value. Anything that people need out there, we've got. We have revolutionary innovation. I think most people have seen our ReactTex technology. It's amazing, and if you haven't, please reach out. And then kind of this on-trend, fresh and clean wellness. So there's my little 10-second commercial. But we seek to be a partner and help you develop and grow your business. And I think the last piece that I have, and we can take questions, is be positive. What we all do will be important to the consumer in the near future. What we all do will be important to the consumer in the near future. We sell home goods. We've been the stepchild for the last few years. We will be important to the consumer, and let's make sure we're not flat-footed. That's my advice to everybody out there.
Okay, well, I thank you both for sharing this information with us. And if when that is posted, if you want to give HTT an alert, we'll be happy to get the news out in our e-newsletter so that people know where to find it.
Absolutely. I think that'll be great. We've got and you can also register at our website to get on the first distribution. We'll send it out via email. You can sign up for the consumer insights, or the buyer insights, or both. You have that option. So.
And you do both through that through that email address.
That's right. So through this URL or on our website, you can go softtex.com under the research or under the services tab. There's research, and I think it's a great value. We're doing all this research that could take hundreds of thousands of dollars to get if you're just doing it yourself, and we're happy to provide this to our buyers as a service for free.
Okay, great. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Enjoyed talking with you.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, same here. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody take care and go grab those opportunities.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.